Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name is VinPF and on today's episode we've got something a little bit out there. Now I'm covering this because I put out a Twitter poll earlier on in the recording day and I asked what my guys on Twitter wanted to see this week. If you want to be involved in polls like that, then make sure you go and check out my Twitter feed. I do them occasionally. And I put on there something like, do you want something cheap, something out there, or something classic? And the overwhelming response was something out there. So yeah, I've got a couple of things like that coming up. So if you fancy more stuff like that, make sure you hit the old thumbs up below and check me out on Twitter. Sure. Today then we have this Circumstance Distillery, Circumstantial Wheat. Now the Circumstance Distillery, I've covered one other bottling of theirs, which is their rice. Make sure you go check that one out because that was a real pucker whiskey. Sorry, I keep saying whiskey because it isn't a whiskey, and that's what puts this out there, because this isn't technically a whiskey either. This one here is their wheat. Now we'll go into that in a little bit. These guys are Bristol based as well. But the key thing here is on the label is these codes here. 13145 in this case. Now every single bottle that they release has this labelling system on there, and they're all different, of course. They must be. And you can tell a lot of information about this if you go on their website, and I'll drop the links in the description below, and I'll also put in the kind of full description of what this particular bottle means down there below as well, so you can go and refer to that rather than kind of listening to me, because I'm probably going to fire through it fairly quickly. But it's very interesting to see what goes into this. Now, of course, this is English spirit. This wheat spirit is very English, so they don't have to adhere to the same sort of rules that any other SWA is. But then again, this isn't calling itself whiskey, and we'll notice that when we get down to this 5 here. So yeah, it's called wheat. Now this was fairly expensive at about sort of £45. It's more expensive than most of the other things they're putting out, but I jumped at it because we did a tasting earlier on this year and they offered us a small discount as part of that, so I think I got like 10% off it or something like that. But the rice is the other one I checked out, definitely checked out. This one's out of stock now, fortunately, so it doesn't really matter, I guess, what I think of it in terms of your buying power, but I definitely want you to check them out, which is why I'm covering this now, because they're well worth checking out. If you're into kind of classic whiskey, then sure, this will probably give you a miss. But if you're into that kind of innovation, into them breaking the mold and trying new things, then these guys are your call, especially if you're in the UK. But if you're further afield, you might struggle to get it. In any case, let's get into these numbers so we can talk what we're seeing. So the first number here then is 1. That always relates to the batch number. So in this case, we've got batch number 1. I'm assuming they'll do a batch number 2 at some point, and they might change the rest of it because this is all the process that they go through. The next one here, number 3, that's their fermentation and their kind of mash bill, you could say. So in this case, we're talking 70% wheat, 30% malted barley. It was fermented for 12 days, and it had a mixture of 3 different yeast strains. So that was a Bavarian wheat strain, a saison beer, a French saison, I'm probably like massacring that, so saison, something like that, and then standard distillers yeast. So that's interesting of itself. The next one here, we've got another 1. This is their distilling method. In this case, it was a stainless steel pot still that then had a copper head on it, that then had a 4-plate column on it. So we're talking about the pot still, so it's still going to be batch, and then it's going to be having pulled off at a column strength, whatever strength that they deemed necessary for that. I don't think it's going to be right up there, but whatever. And then finally, sorry, not even finally, we've got the 4 here, which relates to their cask or aging process, let's say, because some of it they do a lot, like the rice was aged in IBCs with spindles in them, so not even casks. This one here was aged in a cask, which was a 30 litre English chestnut, that's the 4 there, that I think, it either had a charred British oak spindle in it, or they had that separately. I don't know for sure, because I know that when they've been talking about spindles in the past, then it goes into an IBC, so they might have chucked a spindle in the cask as well, but again, why not? They can do that. They're not bound by the regulations like they are up in Scotland. That would have been an absolute no-no. Probably quite a lot of this would be anyway. And the last number there is the months that it was aging for. So this is 5 months old. Now obviously bear in mind this was a small cask and had a spindle in it as well. So you are going to get that extra kind of oak influence to create the colour like this. They're all natural coloured. This one's 48%, and you can see you've got a hand labelled number. Mine's 66 of 275. So yeah, okay, that was a lot of information. A lot of the kind of whiskey nerds like myself will probably appreciate that. But just wanted to run through that because I wanted to point out that they're really doing kind of crazy things down there, but like to our benefit, I think. This is groundbreaking stuff. I say, like the rice again. I bring up the rice a lot, but please do go and check out that video because it's really quite cheap. This one was a little bit more expensive, but this one's more akin to what your flavour profile, if you're used to your kind of wheated bourbons. It's not quite there, it's not like that, it isn't virgin oak. Or maybe it is, I don't know. It just says charred barrels, it doesn't say it's X anything else, so whatever. My point is, it's not, I don't want to say bourbon because it's not like bourbon, but it is more akin to the whiskies that you know and love than the rice was. That was weird, but it was lovely. Anyway, I'm whittering on. Let's get into the actual tasting and then we can see what we've got in the glass today. I think natural colour. They don't actually say anything on here, I don't think. No, not really, but I imagine it is. I don't think there's any point of releasing anything else otherwise. But let's get onto the nose and see what we've got. Now, for me, it's surprisingly complex for its age. There's a lot going on with how they made it, for sure. I mean, I'm probably being sold by the name of it being wheat, sure, but I get a lot of wheat, kind of hay, some cereal notes. It's clearly youthful kind of whiskey. This, obviously we can't call this whiskey because it's only 5 months old. The rest of it should be fine, I think. I can't remember exactly. Maybe. Oh, the wheat, of course, yeah. Well, they can call it whiskey. I don't know what I'm talking about. Basically, it can't be called whiskies. It's 5 months. The rest of it, not sure. But yeah, it's lots of hay for me. And then there's a kind of a sweetness to it as well on the back end. You kind of have to dig deep, but it's there. And I got some like vanilla cheesecake vibes from it. And maybe even a touch of citrusy, kind of orangey side, leaning on that orangey citrus side at the end. Like I said, there's a lot going on here, and it really does take the air well. Let's try on the palate then. Okay. Now, you've got to be quick with this one if you're trying this to get the kind of main tasting notes. Again, you're talking about that kind of, there's some sweetness there, there's a citrus there, definitely leaning on the orangey side, and some kind of the buttery biscuit base almost. But that gets overpowered really quickly. The ABV lets itself know, the 48% it's high, it's spicy, it's peppery, and that it does overtake it a little bit, but not to its detriment. It's again, you can tell it's fairly youthful, but for me, I enjoy that. I enjoy that spiciness, and it's something I don't say often. Usually we say cracked black pepper or something like that, but this is very heavily on that powdered white pepper side. Let's have another quick sip. Yeah, I would say you've got about 5 to 6 seconds before you get that kind of spiciness coming through. The finish, however, is fairly it's medium. I wouldn't say it's like overly long. Very, very spicy. The sweetness disappears pretty quickly, but the spiciness is great. I'm loving that. It's got an interesting sort of mouthfeel. It isn't like overly viscous, quite thin potentially, but not in a bad way necessarily. It just disappears off pretty quickly and leaves that spiciness. The sweetness is pretty much gone. But for me, very, very, very happy with that purchase. It was one of those ones where when I popped it, I was like, what have I done? But I thought that about the rice as well. I thought, what am I going to say about this thing? But it developed over time. So if you've tried a sample of this, I don't think it does it justice, as I had done before. I pretty much took a plump on this because at the time of purchasing, there wasn't that much on the store to buy. A lot of it had sold out, and they hadn't released any kind of second batches or anything like that. So it was pretty much the only thing that I hadn't tried that I could buy at the time. So I just bought it because it was the last one. There's a little bit more choice now. There's like a mixed grain and a rye, so you can kind of tell if you've got a kind of particular preference to any one of those things, then that's probably where you want to start. But the cool thing, if you stuck with me long enough on this video, the cool thing about these guys is they're just about to release their first official whiskey that follows more regular guidelines. So, aged in a cask for 3 years, that sort of thing. Nothing fancy, no spindles, whatever. So we're looking forward to that. Haven't tried it yet, but I'll bring that to you as soon as I get it. I'm a member of their Circ club, So I should hear about it. I know they're releasing it, I think September or something like that. So I'll try and get it, and I'll try and do a video about it so that you can see. Although likely you're probably not going to be able to buy it because it'll just sell pretty quickly, I imagine. Anyway, a longer video than usual because there's a lot to talk about with this one. Again, if you can't get hold of this, I'm sorry about that, but you should be able to get hold of their other stuff. They've got a tasting set as well. If you're in the UK, make sure you go and check out their tasting set, because then you can try these things for a smaller price. But well worth putting on your radar. Follow them on their social medias and whatnot so you can see what they're doing. Very small, like I said, in Bristol, so they need your support essentially. So yeah, check them out. And if you can, try this. If not, try one of their sample packs. There you go. You wanted an out there video, you've got an out there video. See you again on another one.